Hello and welcome to What Women Want Today podcast, season 3, the Soul Sister series, where we will tackle tough topics straight from our heart to yours. I'm Terry Kellums, your host and coach for women who struggle to find meaning and fulfillment in midlife.
I am Amanda Keeper. I am your new regular contributor. I come straight from the Midwest, Rockford, Illinois. I'm a public speaking teacher and leadership development professor. I'm also a coach and clinical mental health counselor. I am so thrilled to be here, and let's get started.
Let's do it.
Hello, welcome to this week's episode of the podcast. I'm your host, Terry Kellums.
I am your co-host, Amanda Keeper. Hello, hello.
Hello, my friend. How are you today?
I am good. I've been working since 9 a.m. So I am on my second energy level task of the day. But I'm excited to be here because we have some fun stuff to chat about.
Do you find that you have to, because I know you're so busy and you're going from one thing to another a lot of days, do you find yourself having to get like that second wind or sometimes even a third wind in one day?
Yes, absolutely. So I like to recharge when I'm in the car on the way from one appointment to the next appointment. And I also have little things to help wake me up. I am not a fan of pop at all, but if I'm really struggling, I found those little bitty cans of Coca-Cola. And on a really hard day, I will let myself have a half a can of Coca-Cola and it wakes me right up. But I don't like to do that. However, I started a step bet challenge. And I am on week 2 of it and I'm doing amazing. So I might not feel so guilty if I allow myself a half of a mini Coca-Cola now that I'm walking so much.
So how long have you been doing that? Like 2 weeks yet?
2 weeks, yes.
Because
last week in my warm-up week, I walked 29 miles, which is really good for me. Yeah.
So how much time is that equating to a day, do you think? I was thinking about you this morning when I was walking.
About an hour and a half.
Wow.
Yep.
I'm not even sure how you fit an hour and a half into your already jam-packed schedule, but.
Well, I've been getting up in the morning.
Awesome.
That's the best way for me to do it, is get up in the morning. Plus it's cooler. And then if I have to get steps in at night, I can easily take a nighttime walk. I prefer to walk in the morning and at night. So it's great for me. Plus if I eat, it helps me move my food around and digest it. So it's just a better option anyway.
Agree. And you're probably getting some vitamin D that you weren't getting before. So win all the way around. But, I heard a tip a long time ago. I don't even know if it's true, so I'm not going to vouch for it, but I will give it to you. They say that eating an apple can be just as powerful for waking you up or giving you energy as a cup of coffee.
Interesting. One of my colleagues constantly walks around my college campus eating an apple. I wonder if that's why he's doing it.
An apple a day keeps the doctor away. Who knows? Maybe
So anyway, if anybody would like to join me in the step bet challenge, it just started. They have new ones that start every 6 weeks, and you put $40 in. As long as you meet your bet, meet your goal, you keep your $40. And then anybody who doesn't keep their bet and keep their goal, they split it with all the winners. So people that I know who've done it might win $5, but you have your walk, your steps, and you won $5.
So it's so interesting that you say that, because I feel like the $5 is the motivation, but I bet by the time you're done with the challenge, like you've developed discipline.
Oh, 100%. And I like this morning, I was super tired. I'm like, I don't care. I feel good when I walk now. Like, I just want to walk. So
I was at the gym yesterday. I think I told you I've started going and just doing like lower body workouts. And then the opposite day, I'll just walk outdoors, which has been nice. But yesterday I saw this woman, I don't know, begin to guess how old she was, but I'm going to say at least like 75, let's say. And you could tell she was not familiar with the machines because there was a gentleman helping her get on a bicycle. And I thought, oh my gosh, I would just love to run over to you and just say, stick to it, hang in there. The first couple times is not easy, but once you get going, you're going to feel so great. You should be so proud of yourself. But of course I didn't do that, but it was tempting.
You're awesome. Maybe you'll see her tomorrow. You can tell her.
Yeah, maybe I'll see how I feel. But hey, you know what? This week I'm sitting in a new spot. Did you notice?
I did notice.
Those who watch us on YouTube, I'm sitting in my dining room, so that's my living room behind me. And I did it on purpose because the podcast is about to go through some changes, and that's what we're going to talk about in today's episode. Amanda, you and I I don't know how long we've been talking about this, but I feel like it's been pretty much since the beginning you joined me for the Soul Sister series.
Yes.
Amanda's husband, just to be very transparent, Amanda's husband says, what does he say about the name of the podcast?
So he will listen to an episode, and then after each episode, he'll say, I just don't understand what that episode had to do with what women want today. If I'm listening to this podcast, I'm trying to answer that question with each episode. And then I thought, honey, you're just being hypercritical. He's kind of a perfectionist. And then I was over at my mother-in-law's house the other day, and she was listening to the episode on journaling, and she goes, I loved it. It's great and all. She goes, but it felt kind of like a therapy session. And I was just wondering, like, what does that have to do with what women want today? So,
the very first time you told me Gary said that, I was like, I know Gary, and I'm not going to have hurt feelings, because he would never say
No.
something just with the intention to hurt my feelings. So I'm gonna take this with the intention of, what can I take away from this? Like, if he's
Sure.
thinking that, then other people must be thinking it too. And, just a little backstory on the name. I was taking a course from a woman, and the name of her podcast has absolutely nothing to do with what she talks about every week. And I'm not going to throw her under the bus, because she has a very successful podcast, but it's called Whiskey and Work. And she's a great lady. She's a great teacher. Her podcast is very interesting, but I've never heard her talk about whiskey even one time. So I took that to mean like, well, it probably isn't that big of a deal what you name your podcast. I was going to originally name it Let's Whine About It, WINE, because I feel like some of my favorite all-time conversations have been when you're with a girlfriend or a couple girlfriends, and you're just relaxed and you're enjoying a glass of wine, and you're just sharing. You're sharing your heart. You're sharing community with other women. You're just being vulnerable and enjoying time together. And I thought, that's so perfect. The only problem is I don't want them to come onto the podcast and think we're going to talk about wine, because I literally only love to drink it and don't know a whole lot about it. So, I know that, all the gurus that I've listened to say, someone should be able to hear the name of your podcast and know exactly what to expect out of it. So Gary is saying, that's not what we're getting. That's not what people are getting when they see What Women Want Today. They're not getting what maybe they would expect out of it. So you and I have been having these conversations of, well, what is our mission? What do we want women to get out of this podcast when they tune in each week? And a couple of men that I know that listen to it.
Yeah, 100%. I've actually had men find great value in it, although I know that that's not the goal or the audience for either of us. I didn't know if I was going to stay on or if this was going to be temporary. And I know that we were talking about if I stay on long term, it really needs to be something that I feel 100% represents who I am as well. So then we had to start like kind of revisioning what do we stand for? Like, what do we both agree on as goals? I know we had a great conversation the other day, and for me, it's really about helping women become the best versions of themselves. And I work with a lot of women in their early 20s. And so for me, I didn't want to just pigeonhole myself into talking to women in midlife, because I feel like many of the topics that you have talked about in the past and that we have talked in the past about can apply to women from many different age groups, and that women who are in our 40s and 50s have so much value and wisdom to share with women who are in their 20s and their 30s. And I wish somebody in my 20s or in their I wish somebody when I was in my 20s would have poured into me in their 40s or 50s, because I feel like I would have maybe had a little easier of a time kind of overcoming some of the obstacles if they had been pouring into me. So for me, I feel like the audience could be expanded to women in multiple age groups.
Yeah, and I've struggled with that. I've struggled with that whole thing, because everything I've learned says that you need to, be very niche specific. We are kind of niche specific in that we do want to pour into women. That's one thing we both agree on. We want to pour into women. I hear you saying, you have that, that very powerful reason. And I think from the beginning, my reason was I didn't want women to feel like they were going through this alone.
Yes.
But that can apply not just to midlife, but to every stage of life. Is, we shouldn't feel like we're going through things alone. I've been listening to Brene Brown's Braving the Wilderness. And loneliness is becoming a problem in America.
Yes, I could
And
not agree more. Oh, I'm so glad you brought that up. Because when you say, what do women want today? I truly feel like it's more connection and less loneliness.
yes, I do too, 100%. So, one thing I said to you the other day is, the analogy I used was, we're baking a cake, like
Mhm.
this new era of the podcast that we're about to go in. And just so the listeners know, season 4 is going to be primarily all about relationships.
Mhm.
Relationships with ourselves, with our spouse, with our friends, like all sorts of relationships we're going to really dive deep in. And I think it's going to be a wonderful season. But when they'll really see the changes happen more drastically, I would say, is the very next season. And that's when we will rename it,
Mhm.
and it'll be much more clear as to what our mission is. But in the meantime, like I said, my analogy was, we're going to bake a cake. We
Mhm.
just aren't sure yet what all the ingredients are going to be.
Yeah, we're on a journey. We're on an adventure together,
Yeah,
and it's still unfolding.
it
And
is.
our goal is that, like, our dream is at the end of this next relationship series, that the new branding, the new identity that comes from it will be so crystal clear that we will just catch fire and want to really expand our reach and be more inclusive.
Mhm.
And I think it's going to be amazing. I'm super excited to explore the unknown with you, because the fact is we don't even know where the journey is going to take us. We just know we're on a
Well,
journey together.
we have been talking about doing something together since
Mhm.
2019.
Yes.
Like, and really maybe even a little bit before that, because we were on a girls' trip with 2 other women, and we talked about, that's when our idea was like, once a year coming together, bringing other
Yeah.
women along and having like almost like sessions where we dive into things. And we got some resistance from the 2 women that we were with. That I don't think that was their cup of tea, but it's been our heart
Yeah.
for years.
And I'm so glad you just said that too, because and I know we have talked about this, but like, if Terry and I do this right, one day we will have a women's retreat or a women's trip where the listeners are invited to join us, and we go somewhere together as
Yes,
women who've been on a journey together. And
yes.
Terry has huge dreams. She's said things over the years like, we just need to rent a private island and have women come out for a retreat. I mean, maybe it's not going to be that big, but I truly, truly would love to see one day where we put a post out there, we put a call out there and says, here's the date, here's the time, join us. Anyone, come one, come all. We want you to feel less lonely.
Yeah. And I was telling you the other day, like, I feel like the first season of the podcast was about me trying to figure out what my voice was as a
Yes,
podcaster. And
yes.
then the second season with Elizabeth was trying to figure out what does it feel like? What does it look like? How do I behave as a podcast host with a co-host?
Right.
And then this season has just been really about being more authentic
Mm.
and showing the world more of my vulnerable side in front of the world with my soul sister, exploring this part of it. And there has been some painful moments for me, some
Yes.
painful moments where, after the episode aired and I re-listened to it, I was like, oh God, I said that, oh, I shared that. And it was tough, but it's gotten easier.
So I'm interested, Terry. We talked about, what are your motivations? What are your reasons for continuing? And we have talked about how, for some podcasters, it's so hard to put yourself out there. And like you just said,
Mhm.
it's hard to be vulnerable and be more authentic, and then wonder, like, how will people respond? And
Mhm.
one of the things Brene Brown says is that the people that are in the arena, that are fighting and scraping, and they're bloodied and they are, tired, and they continue to put the work in, and they just want to feed into people, that it comes with some risk, and it comes with great
Mhm.
risk, right?
Yeah.
But,
Yeah.
but I can see that you have grown in your, just what you share with the world. And for me, it's been so beautiful to witness. And I'm just wondering, do you like this version of Terry, the podcaster, in season 3?
I do. So I was thinking about this morning. Brene Brown was saying that she has kind of she had adopted, now she's changing, but she had adopted this sort of like, let's just agree to disagree mentality. And in the book, she talked Braving the Wilderness, she talks about how that really doesn't serve anybody, because it stops us from being curious about, why do you feel that way? What, tell me more about your belief about that. And the way I've handled it in the past on the podcast is just sort of gloss over it.
Yeah.
If somebody said something that's a little bit out of my comfort zone, or maybe didn't line up with my beliefs. And here's the thing, like, my personality is, it lends itself to appreciating that people have beliefs that are different than mine, even if I don't agree with them. But I'm never going to debate somebody on their beliefs. It's just not my personality. But if I'm with someone who believes like I believe, then I can be very vocal. So in the podcast, in the past on the podcast, when those opportunities came up, I sort of glossed over them and didn't really validate them, but didn't say anything to the contrary either. And I think if I had a goal for myself for the future in the podcast, I would be a little more brave, and I would be a little more curious about those beliefs that aren't like mine, and challenge myself to listen, dive a little deeper. And at the end of the day, no matter what they say, or you say what the response is, I can still have my own beliefs, and we can still walk away. And what I was telling my friend Jennifer this morning is, even when you and I don't believe the same things, the thing that holds us together is respect.
Oh my gosh, 100%. And I'm smiling because there are moments where you have done that. And I wish we could get together a group of clips where you've been like, I disagree. No, I'm getting warm inside. And you have done that. So I love to hear you say that, because I would love to see more of those moments, because that's what listeners find engaging. That's what's going to keep them listening is, let's have an argument. Why not?
Yeah.
Which we know it's not an argument. Brene Brown says clear is kind. Clear is kind. Clear is kind. So when you pass up an opportunity to say something that's in disagreement with somebody you care about has said, then you've missed an opportunity to connect. But you nailed it. Like, we have to maintain that respect for each other, that at the end of the day, we are safe enough with each other to say X, Y, or Z, and then still be like, oh my gosh, you're my soul sister. You always will be. What are we talking about tomorrow? So
yeah, exactly. I feel like during my accident recovery, I spent way too much time on social media. So I think I feel like I have a healthy balance most of the time, where I can scroll through and stop on the interesting things. What I found myself doing that was so much different during the recovery period was I would dive deeper into the comments. And I found myself just being like, oh my gosh, people are so unkind. People are so disrespectful and rude, and they can only do it behind the safety of their keyboard and the computer screen, right? Like, because would they say some of that stuff to somebody in real life without risk of getting punched right in the face? It's like, now I feel like I just want to go, hey, I'm just here for the comments. It's just, you guys are like entertaining. You're like the reason people watch the Jerry Springer show. So I have a hard time with the commentary that feels aggressive, or that feels demeaning, or feels unkind or disrespectful. I feel like if we could do something in the world today to just take things up a notch in our kindness quotient. I'll give a shout out to Cindy Rowe for the kindness thing that she's brought to my life. But I feel like if we could just do what Brene Brown says and just be a little bit more curious, you could simply say it as, tell me more. What a simple sentence. You don't have to say, I'm agreeing with you. Just tell me more. So I hope that element comes out a little bit more as we continue to grow and evolve over season 4 into season 5 with the rebrand. So tell me something that you hope that we accomplish, if you have something in mind.
Yeah, I can tell you very, very quickly. I hope that we have more listener engagement, because I can tell you that the most rewarding thing for me being a part of this series is having people reach out to me and say, I couldn't agree more, or man, that episode hit me hard. I hadn't thought about it that way, or I really need to spend more time focusing on X, Y, or Z, or the chemistry between the two of you has really made me reconnect with some of the friends that I lost connection with, or I've never put friendships as a priority and I want a girls trip too. Or there's so many different things that people have said to us over the weeks and the months that have been so impactful to me. And so I would love if we could get more feedback from people as to what helps and what makes them feel included, what makes you feel less lonely in the world.
Yeah, I love that. And I think, you know, we say it during different episodes, but I really think if the listeners could do us that honor and that favor of sharing an episode that you really love with a friend, putting it on your story on Instagram or your Facebook page, or sending us an email, letting us know, or go onto the Facebook community and start a conversation. That's your community too. You know, the listeners, it's their community too. So you don't have to wait for Amanda or I to start a conversation. It's, you know, I'm having this struggle. I have this accomplishment I'd love to share with other women. And, you know, that's it's probably going to have to be a community effort for all of us to get a little bit better at engaging over the content, because we need to know what you guys love. I can look at the numbers, and Amanda and I have talked about this too. Like, I can look at the numbers and I can say, wow, you really loved the episode. Do happy couples cheat? The numbers say that's what you want to hear about. So, you know, we can analyze what the most viewed videos are on YouTube. We can analyze the most listened to episodes through, you know, an audio podcast platform. But what we really need to do is hear from the listeners and the viewers.
Yes. And I would even love to have a listener or a viewer on the podcast. If you feel like you have a topic that meets the needs of this audience, or has something that you've always had as a goal, like, reach out to us. That's, you know, so like I said earlier, I want to help people become the best versions of themselves. And that means empowering women to meet their goals and dream bigger dreams. So I would love to know what all of you are dreaming about.
Absolutely. And, you know, I was telling you when we first started out our conversation today, before we started recording, that people forget about 80% of what they learned. So I think what we're probably going to do is take some of the information from past episodes and pull it into the future with us and just expand on it, go a little deeper, because I have been guilty in the past of not going deep enough.
Yes.
Because I thought people wanted short episodes, but that's not really what we're seeing in the numbers. So again, you know, feedback to us is so crucial for us to continue to grow this and to take it to the level that we want to take it. I want to bake that cake with you. I want it to be the best, most delicious, yummy cake. And I think I've got cake on the brain because my birthday's coming up in a few weeks.
I'm sitting here going, man, I hope it's gluten-free, because gluten's really been messing me up lately. And I want to make sure this cake doesn't make my belly hurt.
Oh, no doubt. No doubt. So what else is on your mind about this whole remarketing, rebranding?
So like we have talked about privately, I think that good branding and good marketing could be put on a t-shirt or a mug. I really want this to be the type of branding that is marketable, that catches fire. I know that Terry read me a poem the other day, and that phrase "catch fire" just stuck with me. And that's kind of like the ripple effect that, you know, when you go and you hear something that really impacted your life, you tell people about it. Or when you go and have a bad experience somewhere, you tell people about it. Like, when something good is happening, it's catching fire. Like, look at forest fires that start, like, they, you know, before you know it, it can overtake something. So I want people to like catch fire in a good way.
Yeah, I was going to remember and read that poem out loud today, and now I totally slipped my mind.
Maybe we could put the poem in the show notes that you had read to me, and that's why I keep saying that phrase.
Yeah.
And this is what it's about. Like for me, it's about these kind of organic conversations where it just gets you thinking. Like I wouldn't even be
Mhm.
using that phrase had I not had a wonderful conversation with my soul sister. I want women to be more connected. So they're thinking, they're growing, they're expanding, they're living more fully, and they're enjoying life more.
See if I can remember it, because I heard once that people listen to podcasts for 3 reasons. One, to be entertained, one, to be educated, and one, to help them think differently. And I've always leaned towards number 3. I love number 2. I love the education part. I don't really want to entertain, even though I can be hilarious sometimes.
Yes, you can.
We need to do another wine episode where we're both
I-
drinking a glass of wine, because that's
I
when I'm
was
my funniest.
literally going to say, when you're on 2 glasses of Sauvignon Blanc, you're hilarious.
um, Anyways, but I've always leaned towards number 3 is I would love it if somebody listened to one of our episodes, and I think they have, and they have, because they've given us the feedback, and
Mhm.
they thought, I never thought about it that way before.
Yeah.
Maybe they still don't want to think about it that way, but maybe for that moment, they thought, I'm considering this. I would be pleased with considering this. But I hope that eventually it's leading to more personal growth. It's
Mhm.
I think, I love like the knowing yourself. When we talked about that on the episode in this
Yeah.
past season, like the knowing yourself is like just like it's like the foundation of all of it. Like
Yes.
how can you really give of yourself and know what your strengths are and your talents are, and all the
Mhm.
gifts you have to give to the world, if you don't take time to really to know who you are.
Yeah,
So
to reflect. You love reflection, and so do I.
I do. I'll have conversations with somebody, and then like days later I'll come back and I'll go, I was
Mhm.
thinking about what you're saying. And-
Yes, it's called inoculation. You plant the seed, and then days later, you're still growing from it.
Mhm.
So yeah, I'm super excited. I
I am
can't
too.
wait to see where this goes. So the next season is relationships.
Mhm.
So we're going to dive
Lots.
into relationships. We'll talk about tough topics. We know that the numbers show that women love to talk about the difficulties and the challenges and the joys and the aha moments. And I'm super excited about that, so that we can go more in depth. And we've talked, I feel like we've gone into breadth. Now let's go into depth.
Yes. Love it. Love it. All right, my friend. I am excited. I get to see you next week.
Yay!
We have one more episode of this season, the Soul Sister season, with Dr. Gupta.
Mhm.
And we're going to talk about Hashimoto's and thyroid. And then we are done. We're taking our little pause. You and I are going to spend a couple of days together.
Mhm.
And we're taking a little pause. I feel like I want to just be a little bit vulnerable here with the listeners for a moment. This pause is for a few reasons. Amanda's been working her ass off 4 months, and she needs a little break, whether she thinks she does or not. I'm going to give her one.
Yes.
We both need, I feel like it's hard to be super creative when you got your irons in too many fires. And I'm speaking for myself right now, not necessarily
Yeah.
for you, but I feel like I've said this before on social media. I don't know if I've said it on the podcast, maybe I have, but I feel like when you let your brain do creative things, like I have a piece of furniture I want to refinish. There's something else I was going to do. I'm of all things, Amanda, this is crazy. I am starting to mill my own flour from wheat berries and making homemade bread. So I really am excited to dive into that a little bit. It's supposed to be so much
Awesome.
healthier for you.
Yeah.
But the other end of the spectrum is, I've talked about my thyroid nodule a little bit, and it is, they think it is cancerous. So I need to focus on my health a little bit for a little short period of time. And my husband was just diagnosed with skin cancer. So you and I haven't even had a chance to talk about this yet, but he had one removed here, and it came back melanoma.
Mhm.
And he has one on his jawline that they said also needs surgery. And it's he has one over here on his face that they burned off and it came right back. So I guess having them so close together is not a good sign. So we
Mhm.
both really want to focus on his health, my health, and
Mhm.
get some answers about what's going on with both of us. So a few weeks of a breather. He's thinking about taking some time off to get all that stuff worked out. I guess if it goes into your lymph nodes, it's it's not good. So we're just, I think we need a little break.
Yeah. And one of the things that hurts my heart so much is my mom took care of my dad, and then she got cancer, and it was like she never stopped. And I'm telling you, one of the things that keeps coming back is if you don't take care of yourself, you can't take care of anybody else. And I think she sacrificed her own health for the health of others. And the cost of that can be deadly. So I have so much respect for you doing that, Terry. I have so much respect for you for that.
Thank you. It's not going to be a long break. We're not going to put a time frame on it right now. But when we do put out the next season, we want it to be so top notch. I want to have all my focus on paying attention to that and giving it my best. This is my passion. It is my purpose. And I'm so glad I get to be doing it with you. So I look forward to seeing you next week. And to our listeners, I look forward to being back in front of this mic, in front of this camera with you very soon for season 4, which we haven't really named the season yet, but I bet we probably will.
Yes, it's all going to come, and it's going to be very intentional, and trust that we have our heart and we're wholeheartedly working on this. We don't want to do things, half-ass. We want to do things all in. So can't wait to see you all after our next episode with Dr. Gupta, and then a little break, and we will come back with lots of surprises.
Absolutely. Okay, my friends, I will talk to you soon. Love you.
Right. Love you. Bye-bye, everybody.
Bye.
Well, that's a wrap for this week. Thank you so much for joining us. We're so glad to be here with you.
And just remember, we're here to serve. Reach out, connect with us on social media platforms, and dig in deeper.
Yes, all those links will be in the podcast show notes. So join us. We can't wait to continue the conversation with you over there. Until next time, everybody, take care.